All right, cool. We can get started. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Molly Carmichael. I'm the communications manager at the League of Women Voters of Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us for our bill amendment advocacy session. So today we'll be doing a little overview about the bill amendment and the questions that will be on your ballot, as well as some of the advocacy steps you can do to inform.
I probably won't listen to this and watch it the whole time.
And if you could all just keep yourself on mute, that would be awesome. And if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat. And of course, today we will be talking not only about the bill amendment questions, but why specifically you should vote no to both of them. All right, and then I'll pass it on over to Sue.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you're enjoying this lovely spring day in Wisconsin. I'm Sue Jenick. I'm as it says, the program director in Dane County. I also serve as the chair of the state legislative committee. So I'm going to try to walk through these proposed constitutional amendments and the ballot language that is approved to be on the ballot. We have somebody not on mute. Okay, thank you. All right, so the first one is showing, this is related to the first question that's going to be on your ballot. And as you see, the word bodily is deleted from the amendment. So the current language says, protect members of the community from serious bodily harm. The words as defined by the legislature by law would be added to the language of the Constitution. That is not conveyed in the message that in the ballot language that appears on your ballot. It does not say in that language that the word bodily is removed. So it says conditions that are designed to protect the community from serious harm. And it also does not say that serious harm will be defined by the legislature by law. So you don't really know what it is you're voting on. You don't know what the legislature has, they have now proposed a definition of serious harm that includes possible economic harm, but that could be changed next year or the following year. I mean, this language doesn't tell us what we're voting on. I did a word search of the current Constitution. There is only one example in the Constitution now where the words as defined by law appears, and that has to do with taxation of agriculture and undeveloped land as defined by law. That is the only example in the current Constitution, and it is being proposed that this additional example of serious harm will be defined by the legislature at some point in the future. Next slide. Now, this provision has to do with the conditions that judges should consider for granting bail and setting the amount of bail. Everything that you see there that's underlined is new language. So the current language is the part that's not underlined. Monetary conditions of release may be imposed at or after the initial appearance only upon a finding that there is a reasonable basis to believe that the conditions are necessary to assure appearance in court, period. Everything else that you see here is new, all that's underlined, and then the last sentence would also remain. So if we go to the next slide, this is the ballot language. It doesn't tell you what the current language of the Constitution does state, and it also doesn't tell you that this is new language. If you go back to the last slide again. Other things that don't appear in the ballot language are, in the third line, you see, or if the person is accused of a violent crime as defined by the legislature by law. So again, the legislature is proposing that this is a term that will be defined at some point in the future. And then again, near the bottom, fourth line up, from serious harm as defined by the legislature by law. Okay, next slide. We can move on. So why does the League oppose these proposals? First of all, everybody knows that this is arising from the parade tragedy in Waukesha County. And that is the motivator. That's what everybody has in mind when they hear about these amendments. However, if you look into that tragedy, the defendant who was convicted of the crimes had been released on a very low bail. Not because anything in the language of the Constitution. Rather, there was a miscommunication between the Milwaukee District Attorney's Office and the Waukesha Court. So to correct this problem,
Oh, Sue, it looks like you have been muted for a few seconds.
okay. So what's needed to correct that potential problem from happening again is to make sure that courts and DA's offices have adequate resources so that they can thoroughly communicate relevant information. Changing the law would have had no effect whatsoever on the decision made in that case. So this proposal, these two proposals, are intended to and will have the result of keeping more people in jail pending their trial. And that means people who are innocent until proven guilty are kept in jail. People who are pending trial don't go to a state prison, they're kept in a local jail. And increasing the number of people who are held in pretrial detention will increase the costs to localities that maintain those jails. Of course, it would increase the racial disparity in our state justice system, which is already one of the worst in the country. I mean, the worst in the country for imprisonment of African-American men. And African-American men are stopped, arrested, and charged more frequently than whites doing the same kinds of acts. And the bail provisions would adversely impact, of course, the less affluent, because if bail is set at a high amount and you have a lot of money, then you can be released. Also, as I explained, those ballot questions are ambiguous and misleading because voters are not really informed what they are voting on, both in terms of the language as defined by the legislature and the language that's being removed and the language that's being added. Those are not specified in the ballot language. And because there is that ambiguous language, there will certainly be, I would say, you know, the chance is 100% that there will be legal challenges to the amendments if passed. So in other words, someone is detained in a pretrial manner prior to, you know, having been convicted of anything, and they wouldn't have been detained before these amendments, and if these amendments are passed, they're detained now, and somebody will definitely challenge that. As you may be aware, There is a current challenge to the Marcy's Law amendment that was passed a couple of years ago on the basis that that language was misleading and ambiguous. Next slide. I also wanted to cover briefly the advisory referendum question, which also appears on the ballot, and that is, shall able-bodied childless adults be required to look for work in order to receive taxpayer-funded welfare benefits? The League also opposes this amendment. Now, it's advisory, so that it doesn't have any actual impact, although what I have read is that the legislature leaders are proposing this in order to affect future legislation. In other words, they're basically doing it for a political purpose. So again, the wording of this referendum question is devoid of information and so vague that it lacks meaning. What are taxpayer-funded welfare benefits? You know, there are many, many things that could fall under that wording, and it is not at all specified. We don't know which public policies would be affected, and we don't know what effect this would have on anyone at all. In fact, to get unemployment benefits, you're already required to look for work. In Wisconsin, there is a law that says for welfare benefits, you're required to look for work. That has been, to the extent that those are federally funded benefits, that has been suspended during COVID, because of COVID, and that suspension is still in effect. But the state legislature cannot change that federal policy. So this advisory referendum question, which would have no effect anyway, is very hard to determine what it actually means and what it would affect. I think that was all I had. Yep.
Great. Thank you so much for that overview, Sue. It looks like we have some questions in the chat. And again, if you have any questions for Sue, feel free to put them in the chat because we're going to take a few minutes here. The first question is it common for ballot questions to diverge so widely from the language of amendments?
I don't know if it was in the past, but as I said, there is this challenge to the Marcy's Law ballot language, similar to the challenges that I think would be made here if these amendments were passed. So it seems to be, there seems to be a trend to, you know, not actually stating what the language of the amendment is, but having ballot language that is somewhat misleading and ambiguous.
Mm-hmm. And then we have another question. How do these referendum get on the ballots when they are so vague and missing important information?
In order for an amendment to the Constitution to appear on the ballot, it has to be passed by 2 consecutive legislative sessions. These were passed, the bail amendments were passed in the 2022 session, and they were again passed in the 2023 session in January, you know, as soon as the session began. The ballot language is also determined by the legislature. So in January, along with passing again the language of the amendment, they also passed the ballot language. So it is the legislature that determines what the ballot language will state.
Gotcha. Yeah, I always find so many of the ballot measures to be very jargony, which I think is disappointing because then it's not accessible to a lot of voters. But it seems like these ones were maybe written with the intent to be ambiguous and, you know, just difficult to process. Another question, does the bail amendment shift power from the court to the legislature?
Well, it does in the sense that these terms are defined by the legislature at some later point in time. They haven't yet been passed. There are proposals that are pending, but nothing has been passed as far as I've seen. So yes, because instead of a judge determining what serious harm is, that will be determined by the legislature as it wishes.
And you spoke a little bit about some of the misinformation around how the bail amendment questions came to be from the Waukesha tragedy. Are there any other misconceptions or misinformation around how the bail amendment will keep people safer or affect public safety?
Well, there is a lot of talk throughout the country about whether a bail system is actually makes any sense, because even if you've committed a violent crime or you're charged with committing a violent crime, if you have enough money, you can be released on bail, even if bail is set at a very high amount. So if the intention is to protect the community from serious bodily harm, as it now states in the Constitution, then a bail system that's based only on money doesn't make a lot of sense. And there are other states that are looking at reviewing, having a review of other kinds of issues rather than bail to determine whether somebody should be released pending trial. Illinois is one of the states that have put that in effect.
Mm. And what are some of the issues, the current issues with Wisconsin's bail system, not including what would happen after this amendment?
Well, I think one of the biggest issues, aside from what I've talked about, the unfairness to people who don't have a lot of money, one of the biggest issues is that the court system is generally underfunded. And so there is a long wait before people get to trial. So if you're detained before trial, you're arrested, you're charged, and now you're detained before trial. If you've been working, you probably lose your job. If you have children, it's unclear what could happen to them. There are many consequences of being kept in jail pending your trial when you haven't been convicted at all.
Definitely. Well, great. Well, thank you so much, Sue. And if anyone has any other questions that come into your mind over the next 20-30 minutes, please feel free to put them in the chat, and maybe we'll have some time at the end to revisit them, or I'm sure we can send out some more information in the follow-up email. All right, next up is my turn. So as I said, I'm Molly Carmichael. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the communications manager here at the state office, and there's my email. Anyone needs to reach me. So I'm going to go over some of the messaging resources and tools that we've created with help from the legislative committee. And so I'm going to be talking about a lot of links and a lot of different materials. This will all be emailed out after the meeting. So if you see any QR codes or links or anything in the chat, please don't rush to go get them, because we'll make sure you have all of the needed tools. So I'm actually going to stop sharing this PowerPoint for a second so I can share my screen with you all. Okay. Actually, I was supposed to just share my screen, but share other things. So bear with me for a second. Okay. Does this look right? Does everyone see that?
It does. I see the toolkit, although it might be helpful if you zoomed in a little bit more.
Thank you, Eileen. All right, so the first tool I'm going to talk about is the League's April 2023 Bail Amendment Toolkit. So as you can see, our stance right at the top is that we oppose this amendment, and we're encouraging voters to vote no on both questions. So first, you can find an overview on some of the information. So this includes when voters can expect to vote, what is a constitutional amendment, I don't think I was fully clear on what constitutional amendment was before I started working at the league. So always good to open that up with your family and friends just to make sure people understand what the implications of this are. Kind of just a brief overview of what the amendment will do. So increasing the number of people who will be held in jail pre-trial, and then just how it actually changes the law. The 2 questions that voters can expect to see, of course, the questions are super long and ambiguous, as we mentioned, but just briefly mentioning question 1 is generally about the conditions of release, and 2 is about cash bail before conviction. And then just some other information on the issues with the amendment and the issues that the league is focusing on for why we oppose this amendment. And then some messaging. So when you're doing some messaging around this amendment, it's always good to stay out of the weeds because of course it's a very dense topic and it'd be really easy to get into the weeds, but instead just focusing on some of the most important reasons why people should oppose this amendment. And that ties into values and things we care about. So for example, it's unjust and it increases racial and economic disparities, which are already abysmal here in Wisconsin. And then also it infringes on people's freedom, the idea of being innocent until proven guilty. This will increase the number of people who are in jail before they get a trial. Then the toolkit also has some graphics, which you can find here, a letter to the editor template, which we'll talk a bit about more later, and then some additional resources. And then really quick, this isn't something from the league, but it'll be included in the email roundup. This is just some additional messaging information from a group called All in Wisconsin. So if you're looking for some more in-depth messaging, as I said, this is a great place to go, just talking about how this bail amendment plays into ideas of power and how it can harm our communities. And a really good thing I wanted to touch on here in this webpage is if you're having conversations with people and maybe they're saying things that are, probably coming from a good place, but maybe not completely accurate in terms of what the bail amendment will actually do. So they have some information about how to respond to things such as saying, we can't have horrible criminals on the street, things like that. Just some information to share with them and messaging to use. So this is another resource that will be included. And then also vote411.org, which we love, which has a personalized voter guide. And it also includes information on ballot measures, as well as the questions that we ask candidates. So as you can see right here, I just have the office address in, and this is question number 2. Question number 1 out of the 2 questions, as you can see, we have in English and Spanish, and just some information, the question itself, and then some information on how the changes this would actually make. Vote no, obviously. And then same thing for question number 2. And on Vote 4 and 1, we don't share that the league is opposed to this amendment because we want people to just go into Vote 4 and 1 and choose the decisions for themselves. But if you're talking with someone and they're looking just for some straightforward information, it's always a great place to send people. Let's see. All right. Next up, letters to the editor. So I wanted to just give a really quick kind of little preview about writing letters to the editor, how to do so, how to get it placed. And then we've created templates so you can go on your way, and hopefully that template is helpful in submitting one. So really quick, especially when talking about the bail amendment, stay out of the weeds. I think probably a lot of people who are on this call or in this work are pretty involved and probably pretty informed about what this is, but the average voter might not be. So, starting from a point of just kind of talking about the fact that there is a state constitution might be helpful. And then, like I said, just talking about values and how this will actually affect people in their communities. No jargon. If you ever must use jargon, it's always good to give a brief explanation, but it's good to not use jargon or any really long words that you don't need to. It's just good to use plain language and keep things accessible. and short and concise, especially that first sentence. Just get right to the point, under 15 words, and then the whole thing should definitely be less than 300 words, but some other papers might ask for 200 or 250. Point number 4 is to list out and enumerate your points. This is a tip I got from Matt Rothschild at Wisconsin Democracy Campaign, who writes a lot of stuff all the time. And sometimes maybe it seems like, oh, I don't want to write first, second, third, because that's what you do in school. But I think it's wonderful. I love to read things that have bullet points or are enumerated. And it's just a good way to keep things clear and concise. Number 5, like I said, focus on values, focus on freedom, community, things that Wisconsinites all care about, and then always end on a high note. So of course, this is something we're opposing. This is something we don't want to pass. This is something that is bad. But it's always good to end on a high note to lift people up, to give them kind of like a call to action. So of course, the call to action at this point would be, you know, let's fight for a better Wisconsin. Let's all get out and vote, something like that. And then number 6, write it all at once. I'm guilty of Googling to fact check after every sentence, and then I go down a Wikipedia rabbit hole or something. So write it all out and then highlight things you want to fact check or add to, and then go and do your Googling. So getting a letter to the editor place can look a little different for different newspapers, but likely you'll be submitting to an opinion editor, so maybe through email, likely through email, or maybe they have a form on their website where you can submit something. If you're worried about writing something and it not getting submitted, you can always pitch an idea to an op-ed editor. So essentially you would just write a subject line, like something, letter to the editor pitch, shoot them an email just asking if, hey, you know, can I share a letter about the bail amendment questions and why I'm against them with you? And then, you know, you'll hear back and I'm sure they'll agree to at least read it. It may take a few days to hear back, so plan to give it a few days. So you definitely don't want to submit a letter to the editor on like April 2nd if you're going to be talking about the election. Give them a few days to get through their inbox. And that's always a good idea to use a current event as something that's called a news hook. So in this case, the election is kind of an obvious one for this, but you know, if you're writing something about the environment, maybe you want to write it about around Earth Day and kind of use that as the news hook to make that topic more relevant. And then this is just a little picture I cut from Cap Times, just an example of what they might ask for, certain papers might ask for when submitting a letter to the editor. And then here's a template which we'll share out because I know the font's really small on this. So again, just kind of putting the important information up top, why you're saying no or why you're asking people to do what you're asking, the date, and then, you know, calling on people of that community to do the same. And again, numbering out points, first, second, and then ending on a high note, and giving people some information and next steps they can do. So again, this template is included in the toolkit and we'll share all of that out. And then sharing on social media is always a good way to inform your friends and family, especially people who are maybe not super involved in this work already. So I'll give you all just a second to use these QR codes if you'd like to repost, like, share on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram. So you can just get your cameras out and press down on the QR codes and share the message about voting no on the bail amendment questions. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, thank you.
All right, well, it's my and Jessica's turn now. I'll introduce myself and then Jessica, if you don't mind introducing yourself as well. It's great to see a lot of familiar names and faces on the call. I'm Eileen Newcomer. I'm the voter education manager for the State League, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. Jessica, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jessica Roloff, and I'm on staff at LWVUS as the Midwest regional organizer, and my pronouns are she, her.
And we know that there's been a lot of information kind of thrown at you, and that, you know, the reason why you all wanted to attend this session, especially considering the name was the Bail Amendment Advocacy, was to take action on this amendment. And so while we are here together, we wanted to give you some opportunities to take action in real time. And then when we follow up with the email, all those great resources that Molly put together, those are the actions that you can take in the coming days as well. And we're happy to be a resource and be helpful for you as you take those actions. Molly, if you want to go to the next slide, that would be great. So our first action that we would encourage you all to take is to let your community, your friends, family, neighbors know about the amendment. So we know that the Supreme Court election is really getting a lot of attention, but people don't necessarily know that there are even going to be these questions on their ballot. And I think it's really important for us, first to think of those closest to us and make sure that they have that information. And these messages that you send to people who are your friends, family members, these are going to be probably the most effective thing that you do around advocating for people to vote no on these amendment questions. And that's because they know you and they trust you and they care about your opinion, and it matters to them that you're taking the time to inform them about these questions, and that you care that they vote and that they're going to make their voice heard. So we wanted to make it a little fun. I put together a little bingo card. So once we get kind of rolling, we can play a little bingo, and these are just some ideas too to be thinking of. Who can you reach out to? Sometimes people are like, I don't know, I don't have anybody, but we all have a really extensive network. And like I said, these are just some ideas. So to get us started, if you want to, make it easy, use that QR code that's on the screen to go to Outreach Circle, where you can easily send messages to your friends and family. And if you need help with this step, Jessica is here to help get people set up on Outreach Circle. Or if you're like, that seems like a step too far, what is Outreach Circle? Technology is scary. Feel free to just send text to people that you know. We have an example message here on the screen, so feel free to use that, tweak it, put it in your own voice. But really, this is some time to take collective action and talk to our friends and family and neighbors about the amendment. Jessica.
I just wanted to add some really great news. We are still using the tool of Outreach Circle, but we actually have it customized now. So it appears as League in Action. So it's League branded. So it's all beautiful. You don't have to do anything new to transfer over, but just so you know, as we continue to use this tool, it officially looks like a 100% League tool. So no more referring, we won't have to be referring people to Outreach Circle. We're going to be able to refer them to League in Action. And that just went into effect last week. So we're very excited about that. And I know it can be scary